Nothing like hitting buttons on a Monday. John here, you there. It's Reaction Monday. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. And we got a lot to talk about this particular morning. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time for the next couple of days because, as you notice, for those watching on the video side of things, you see the boss coming in and out of the back door. And she's waving to each and every one of you who might be just listening instead of actually watching. So here's the deal. We are having guys work on our front deck and our back deck here at the Casa de Nelson for the next however long. I don't know how long it's going to take. So I'm going to go ahead and warn you now that there might be noises coming through the headsets and everything, and that's the deconstruction and the reconstruction of the decks. The house has desperately needed it. And it just got to a point to where we actually could kind of fit it into a schedule where we were going to be here in the house and we could kind of see things happen and move everything. For those of you that follow the boss on social media, there's a picture that was posted yesterday of how we've had to move everything off the decks. Literally, we've had to take all the plants, all the seats, all the sofas, all the everything off of the decks so they could be torn down. Everything from the front deck is now in the kitchen. Everything from the back deck is now in the living room. And so we had to take chairs. Well, first off, if anybody wants a really nasty grill that is in need of either repair or replacement, it's on our front, it's on the curb. If you don't want that, that's perfectly fine. It probably needs to be just thrown away and recycled or what have you. But we had to move the grill from the back deck to the curb so it can be picked up by the garbage folks. And then we had to take the two chairs and the rocker. It's a two-person rocker. And instead of taking every single chair down the back stairs, down the stairs into the garage, out the back, out this door, and then out to the back porch, we decided to decided to put string on the chairs themselves and send them over the back deck, over the railing, and just kind of lower them onto the backyard. Did that for two chairs, got rope burn yesterday, and then when we tried to take the two-seat rocker and put it over the edge, it got to a point to where the tow rope got wrapped around my arm at just the right distance, so you could you could finally see that the tow rope finally the indentation on the tow rope is finally off of my right arm. But the two-seat rocker did end up going over the back deck. So everything is off of the back deck, everything is off of the front deck. The guys doing the work, they have to come in through the front door so they can access both. So if you hear over the next couple of days, if you hear what's going on through the headset, I just wanted to let you know that that's what's going on. So it is deconstruction and reconstruction here at the Casa de Nelson for God knows how long, and we'll figure out what's going on. And yeah, Abby, I was wondering if they were going to actually make it because of the weather being what it is. Abby's obviously concerned. It's cold for the crew, and by that she means the folks that are working on the decks, not Columbus, even though it is cold for Columbus because they're out of the playoffs. And we'll get into that this morning too. But yeah, I was wondering if, since it's in the 30s, if they were even going to be here just because of the weather. But no, they showed up. Then when they said they were showing up. And so, like you said, you hear drilling, you hear vibrations, you hear stuff through the headset the next couple of days or next couple of weeks. I don't know how long they're going to be here. That's what's going on. I just wanted to warn you. And if you see the boss coming through the back door, it's because the rowdy man needed to go outside, and then he comes back inside because we can't use the front door because the crew is deconstructing the front deck, and they're using the front stairs. So that's where we are. All right, now here's the rundown for this morning. We got to talk about the news that broke yesterday, and we've kind of reached out to some folks, and maybe we will have them drop by over the next couple of days to discuss. Ashley Pettit at The Athletic broke yesterday that you are going to be seeing an NWSL expansion franchise here in the city of Atlanta. They're going to be Team 17. And we'll get into that this morning. So here's the rundown for the morning. We've got to get into the NWSL story. We've got to discuss what happened in MLS Cup playoffs. Then we've got to find out what is going on with the U17s. Slated for the bottom of the hour, it is our catch-up with Cooper Sanchez. We caught up with Cooper yesterday afternoon local time in Qatar. So we caught up with him for a little bit as our way to kind of follow along what's going on with the U17s. The tournament's going on right now. We've got games. The early kicks have about 10 minutes to go. The Swiss are leading Mexico by the score of 3-1 in the 82nd. And Mexico escaped an early red card. Boy, did they escape an early red card. The next match for the U.S. comes up tomorrow against Czechia, and we will break that one down for you with Cooper coming up after we catch up with Abe Gordon here in a couple of minutes. Then after that, it's cards and calls. We've got to do Yanks abroad, and we've got to go over MLS Cup playoff. We'll do that with Abe specifically. We do have audio accompaniment to go over the weekend on the whole. And then at 10:30, Gabe Schray is going to join us to catch up. We now have a champ in MLS Next Pro. We have audio accompaniment for that. And we also have a final in USL League One. We will discuss that. We'll discuss the season of Next Pro, discuss USL League One, and anything else that's on your mind having to do with all of the news. But obviously the biggest news is the NWSL team, and we'll start that off with Abe Gordon here coming up in whenever I can get him properly hydrated and he's ready to go. So as always, we bring in Abe this time of the day and find out what's going on in Abe Gordon's mind. Sir, we had a rather interesting piece of news that has been, I guess, basically 7 years in the making for Arthur Blank. Yesterday, it was announced that the NWSL appears to be coming to Atlanta for Team 17. And we don't really have a whole lot of details. The announcement, according to The Athletic, is supposed to be tomorrow. But NWSL to Atlanta, sir.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see kind of the integration between Arthur Blank's other properties, most notably Atlanta United, and this newest franchise. I mean, are they going to play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium? Are they going to train out at the United training grounds? And kind of what are some of the group efforts, if you want to call it that, for them. So I'm obviously really fascinated. It's really cool that Arthur Blank continues to not only drive sports here in Atlanta, but soccer specifically. And obviously we know about the U.S. national team stuff and some of the big events that are coming just from a event standpoint. But this is a much more, for him personally, I would say a much more rewarding affair because you probably don't get quite as much, praise for it in terms of, comparing it to Atlanta did a great job hosting the World Cup or Atlanta did a great job this or that. This is a very clear passion for Arthur Blank has been soccer and the implementation of soccer here in the city. It's been very cool to see. And it just takes it to the next step. And the next question could be, how good can they be and how quickly? Yeah, I think that's always of interest too.
Yeah, and with the Boston coming in, and you saw how the response was with Bay, where you couldn't get a seat for match day one at PayPal Park. Didn't really end up that way on the field for Bay FC in their first year. I'm interested to see how it looks in Denver when they show up and when Boston shows up. But you know that whatever the rules of engagement are involving acquisition of talent in the NWSL, whatever the front office looks like for this upcoming anticipated Atlanta franchise, they're going to max it out to make sure that and I'll go ahead and say this, when they play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that you're going to have a place that's going to be exciting and full and all this, all the things that you would anticipate for an Arthur Blank and an AMBSE product out of the blocks.
Yeah. Again, it's just there's no doing this halfway, right? And I think that's the one thing you certainly know and expect that Arthur Blank will do is he's going to hire people and put them in place to try and get this thing up and running at a certain level as quick as possible. Now, we have also learned from Atlanta United this year that money doesn't always solve the issues. And so you have to do this intelligently, and sometimes you'll come up short, but you have to be ready to deal with that as well. But again, the one thing, like you pointed out, John, is there's going to be money thrown into this, and I'm really fascinated to see how quickly they can get it up and running. And again, how aligned it's going to be with Atlanta United and what they do at their facilities.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be as close to a vertical integration as possible, where you're going to see there had been a mention about other property attached to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground that Atlanta United has access to. Is it stuff that's going to be down the road? I don't think that that's going to be a concern. Everything will get squared away, and you'll see both the MLS team and the NWSL team. I think it's going to be just as close to a complete and total integration as it can be going forward. More on this on the show as we go. All right. I wanted to go over what happened in the deciders with you in Major League Soccer. And it seemed like it was a battle of the extremes over the weekend. Either it was blowout city, or it was one of those where you're sitting there going, is this damn thing ever going to end? And when you look at the 5 Game 3 deciders on the weekend, what first sticks out in your mind? And that's where we'll start the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's 2 of the favorites taking care of business. San Diego in the West and Miami against Nashville there. And obviously it had gotten interesting that it was going to a deciding Game 3. But both games, I think, were 4-0, and they seemed relatively non-competitive. I think Miami took a lead pretty early. And it felt like that was over, I don't know, 19 minutes in or whatever it was. I think it was.
Well, it was that many. So 10 went 10. Messi went in the 10th minute was when it started.
Yeah. So, they took control early and went from there. Some really good shootout stuff out there. Seattle and Minnesota. That was, really the only overly compelling finish, man. But it was interesting. And then Cincinnati at home, the Battle of Ohio, the higher seed, the home team moves on. But Miami looks very good, Philly looks very good, and San Diego looks very good. I still think LAFC is the squad to beat, but that's just a kind of a gut feel.
Oh, I know. You and I in LAFC, and it's either LAFC or Vancouver out of the West. And I know that everyone is anticipating that whole LAFC, Messi and friends joining at MLS Cup. You mentioned the PK shootout with Minnesota and Seattle. Here's the ending, one of the versions of the ending that I cut with Callum Williams and Kinder D. St. Aubin, courtesy of our friends at Apple TV and Major League Soccer.
Thomas for Seattle Sounders. It's the woodwork. It's over. It's over. Seattle Sounders are out. It's just another jaw-dropping, head-turning, tail-twisting moment at Allianz Field. Minnesota go on. Minnesota march on to the Western Conference semi-finals. Have you ever seen anything like
it? 10 frames. Hang on. There we go. 10 frames. Once again, Callum and Kendra on Apple TV. It goes 10 frames, keeper v. keeper to finish. And to just play that one highlight, we probably could go 6 or 7 minutes of highlights in this particular match, because Seattle comes out of the blocks and they're running roughshod over Minnesota, and it doesn't even look close. And then you have, how do we phrase this? We have just a moment of stupid from Joseph Rosales, where he headbutts an opponent. Literally, he takes the head, he takes his own head, not anybody else's, but he takes his own head and squarely hits an opponent in the sternum right in front of the ref and the AR. So you get 2 goals in the first 8 minutes. Then Pereira scores to make it 2-1. Rosales gets the red card in the 41st minute. So Minnesota, for the final 50 minutes, is playing a man down. They go to the break 2-1. They get to catch their breath. And I'm sure that Eric Ramsey gave Joseph Gonzalez an earful in the locker room at the half. Then you get Diaz to score in the 62nd to tie it at 2. Marcanic scores, and I don't know how Marcanic was as wide open as he was at the back post. Set pieces, set pieces, set pieces. Wide open back post. Minnesota down a man, down 2-1, comes back to lead 3-2. Then Jordan Morris scores in the 88th to make it 3-3. Then they go to PKs. Then you go to the 10th, and Andrew Thomas, after Dane St. Clair goes in, Andrew Thomas, after he dislocates his finger in the top frame of the PKs, and this was a substitution that Brian Schmetzer said he was going to make. They get to PKs, Stephen Fry out, Andrew Thomas in. First frame, he dislocates his finger. They pop it back in place, and they get to the 10th frame. This game was stupid.
Yeah, it was. It was really fun. The interesting, I don't know, and obviously it's partially because of how the game played out, how it started. But like it almost felt like it was like a 1 or 2 seed being sent home. And I think you hear the broadcast kind of parlay a little bit of the shock and surprise at Seattle going home. Never mind you, this was a home game for Minnesota. Never mind that they're the higher seed in this situation. But it almost plays out the way they call it, as if Seattle was a MLS Cup favorite and are shockingly being sent home. And I think that's because of, as you mentioned, the theatrics of going down to 10 men, having already been down 2 goals in the first couple of minutes. By the time you went down a man, you were back to within 1. But still, it was of the games that you looked at over the course of this playoffs and what remains in the MLS Cup playoffs. I don't know if we'll see a crazier finish than this one. I still, when it comes to penalty kicks, how can you not just get it on frame? Like, it's just one of those things. Like, if he makes the save, he makes the save, but you have to make him make the save. You didn't do that, and there you go. But pretty crazy finish. It's as a goalkeeper sicko, I love seeing them be forced to face off. It's almost better when they have to face off, like, just because you're that late into it. Like, it's kind of a bummer when a keeper's like just your regular 4th taker and you know he's good. It's much better when you know they aren't prepared really to have to take them, and it always comes down to it. If the guy's just good, Rogerio Ceni and all that, that's not as cool. It's not as fun.
Yeah, Alyssa Nair coming up in the 4th or 5th frame. She's just like, nah, I'm taking care of this and we're done. Yeah. 10th frame, 7-6, and Andrew Thomas hit the crossbar flush. I mean, he
squared it away.
He hit it pure, but he hit the crossbar flush, and Seattle wanders away, and they're done. And Minnesota and their ball has cooties lifestyle continues in the semifinals. And obviously next week when we get closer to the semis, we'll analyze it a little bit more. But Seattle and Minnesota, that one was one of the craziest ones of the weekend, regardless of what part of the planet we're talking about. You mentioned Messi and friends. That one was over, and it did not look good at all for Nashville, just kind of ending the season on a bit of a whimper. Then you end up with, you mentioned San Diego and Portland. Hell is Real goes to Cincinnati. They brought Brenner back for a reason, and that reason was goals in the 86th minute. And so that's the end of a career for Darlington Nagbe as the 2 beats the 7 in the East, 2-1.
Yeah, and that's probably a bigger story for me than anything else is Nagbe and the career he's had, obviously here in Atlanta, but elsewhere. Tough to go out in that game was there to be had.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to sit here and think anyone's getting in the way of Miami. And remember, they were playing without one of their super friends in this one.
Yeah, they were.
Still found a way. He'll be back in for after this international break. And now the thing is, everyone's just, if your team is advanced, you're just praying your guys that have gone over. And I know Messi's already in Europe getting ready. You're just desperate for these guys either to not see the field at all, or just to avoid some sort of injury, because it obviously is just the toughest time of year for guys to be globetrotting and putting their bodies at risk when you've got a trophy on the line in the next couple of weeks. But international break, so we don't return to MLS action for what, 2 weeks, 10 days?
Like next weekend, yeah.
And so just if your guys are gone, just hope they get back healthy and no muscle injuries, none of that nonsense.
Yeah, make sure that you bring your foam rollers with you and you have them on the plane and all that kind of stuff. The fourth one, since we've mentioned the fifth one since we mentioned the other four, NYC goes to Charlotte, takes care of business. And I know a lot of folks here in this particular part of the footprint were NYCFC fans. They were making sure that everybody up in Charlotte knew that ain't nobody down this side of 85 were fans of what was going on. So NYCFC goes and they take care of business. And Charlotte, I'll get into the Dean Smith quotes here in a second, but yeah, Charlotte, basically they had a whimper of a performance as well. And like I said, it seemed like in these deciders, it literally was one way or the other. It was going to be a smashing game like we saw with Minnesota and Seattle, or you were just going to fade out like we saw with Nashville and like we saw with Charlotte.
Well, and the funny thing with Charlotte is you lost both of your home games. You went on the road and took the middle game, and just something you had relied upon really each of the last 2 years, this quote fortress that doesn't stand up in the playoffs. I mean, what are we doing with that? But it's just something you wouldn't have expected. They've been so good at home the past 2 years. And then when the games pick up their meaning and things tighten up, so does Charlotte. And so they can enjoy the rest of the postseason from their TVs and the app if you need to watch it on your phone. But they're not going to be involved anymore. There's certainly a lot of people here in Atlanta taking some quiet victory drinks on that one.
Yeah, you have folks that are pumping their chest in all of this, and the stats in this particular game, they kind of bear the whole thing out. And it was, and this is the main stat that has stuck with me for this entire series. It was kind of a microcosm of the whole thing. Charlotte outshot NYC in game 3, 16-8. Number of shots on target for NYC, 7 of those 8. For Charlotte, 1 shot on goal of the 16 that they took in that 90 minutes at Bank of America Stadium. 1 shot on goal. I can't think of a margin. I can't think of the last time you had a margin that large involving anything like this. 16 shots, 1 on target. So you had that for you for Charlotte to go for the slow fade here in game number 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, that reminds me of too many performances by Atlanta United with the shot on goal issues. But so I don't know if we have much to say there. But look, it'll be enjoyable to watch the remainder of the playoffs without having to deal with Charlotte. So there you go.
What is going on with you this week before we catch up with you next week before we start previewing everything else with the Final Four?
Yeah, I think we're ready for the next Atlanta United season to roll around, if we're going to be honest. Obviously, we got Tata Martino in there now, and the Falcons are pretty much done for. So we're kind of waiting for the next Atlanta sports team to get going and hopefully not blow their season horrifically. So
God, what happened in Germany yesterday, man?
They lost in overtime.
Yeah, I know.
They lost. They lost again.
Oh.
Honestly, if we are going to compare the Falcons to Atlanta United, it's the players you need to be better, not being good enough. And in this situation yesterday, Michael Penix Jr., the leader of your team, supposedly on offense, was not good enough. And the team in third down situations was not good enough. In the moments that decide games, they weren't good enough. I'd like to compare it to Atlanta United in a variety of different ways, but the guys that you're counting on ultimately to help lead you to victory were not good enough. And that's a problem. And potentially, like Atlanta United, they may be looking for some new leadership. So we'll see what the decision there is. I don't think it'll be anytime soon, unfortunately, to most people's dismay, but they may be looking for a new coach as well at some point.
And I need to remember to start Tyler Algier, who I have on my fantasy team, but did not.
Well, he got a bunch of carries in this game, and then judging by most of the other performances this year, he probably won't see the ball for another 3 weeks. So,
But yeah, so of course the week that I don't start him is the week that he goes berserk. And, and I needed that coming into tonight. I'm down about 10 points. The other guy's roster's done. I've got Dallas Goedert, and so that's where I need a touchdown from Dallas Goedert and some catches, and then I should get the win. But my team has been awful, and because of that, I have 5 picks in the first 24 in next year's draft. So that's my fantasy update for everybody. Not that I only care about. As always, my friend, great to see you on Mondays to bat leadoff with us, and we'll catch up with you as we get you next week, previewing everything in the Final Four when it comes to Major League Soccer. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, sounds good, John. Appreciate it as always.
There we go. There's Abe who puts up with my fantasy nonsense, and it is fantasy nonsense this year. I suck. I am awful in fantasy, and our league is a league that has, and traditionally in fantasy leagues, you can sit there and you win, you win a game and so on. But a long time ago, and this is a keeper league that I've been in for, I want to say 20 years. And I won it 3 years ago and have sucked ever since. If you win your game, you win your game. But if you score higher than the league median, the league average, you get an extra win or an extra loss. So you could have a really good week and lose scoring wise, and you'd finish 1-1. You could have a really bad week offensively and win your game and still be 1-1 for the week. If you have lights out offense and you win, you go 2-0. If you lose and you stink, you go 0-2. And this particular year, I started out 1-7. So basically that means I won 1 game, but I didn't get the league average in the first 4. And so I lost the other 3. So I was 0-6. And then I won 1, but I didn't get to the league average. So I was 1-1. So I was 1-7. People started hounding me. And you remember our conversation that I had with Danny Higginbotham about fantasy football. And it hasn't gotten much better for me. And so that's why I've traded away some assets. And I now have 5 of the first 24 picks in next year's draft. But I still continue to be awful. And I'm an awful judge of talent because I had guys who were on my reserves that scored touchdowns and had a lot of catches, and I didn't start them. And that's pretty much the story of my life when it comes to fantasy football. That's enough about me and fantasy football. Let's turn the page and go to Qatar and find out what's on the mind of Cooper Sanchez. We caught up with Cooper yesterday, and with the U.S. winning their first 2 matches, they're getting ready for match day 3. It is Czechia, it is tomorrow, and it is in Qatar. Yesterday, and thanks to U.S. Soccer for navigating the planet and figuring out time changes and everything like that to catch up with Cooper. Here's our conversation with Cooper Sanchez from a hotel room in Qatar about the U17s and the U.S. chasing after a World Cup. I think. At least I thought it was. Seriously? We're going to do this today? Wow. All right. So it's going to be one of those kind of conversations. Well, that's not good. Wow. Okay, so it's going to be like that. All right, so then we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to reload the silly thing. And fine, we're going to reload it, and then we're going to do this. And there you go. So how's it feel to be half a world away for 3 weeks and running, huh?
Great. New opportunities, excited to be, with the national team. Obviously, it's a great opportunity every time I'm with them, and to represent, my country at a World Cup means, the world to me and also my family, and the ability to, represent Atlanta United as well. They've given me, a lot since I was young, and they've kind of shaped me to who I am as a person and a player today. So, just giving everything and representing them here on the world stage.
You've been over there for a couple of weeks, but 2 matches have already gone in the books in the group stage. When you look at those first 2 matches, obviously you got subbed out late in the first one, didn't participate in the second one. When you look at these first 2 matches in group stage, what sticks with you so far?
Yeah, I think what we've learned as a team is, the thing is to fear no one. I think that's what we have to take into each game, and kind of bring with us throughout the knockouts as well. But I think the first game was, kind of getting into, a World Cup environment in a sense. They're big games, a lot of people, a lot of, fans, a lot of expectations on us. because of we're the USA, but that's what you have to play with. That's the pressure you want. But no, I think what we've learned is just that if we stick together and play our game, and we have the talent to beat any team in this tournament, and yeah, that's what we have to take with us.
In the matchup against Burkina Faso, obviously dominant in all of the numbers on the board, and it just you kept hammering away, hammering away, hammering away. Then you get the late goal to get full points, and then against Tajikistan, it was an early goal that you had to come back from to try and get the result from there. So it's been two different learning situations that the U.S. has had in Qatar so far.
Yeah, I think that honestly helps in a sense. So you're not, starstruck by if you go down a goal in another game or something. So I think it's honestly good that it happened. But yeah, like you said, we had the front hand pretty much all game. Obviously, Burkina Faso is a good team, physical, run a lot, kind of all over the place, kind of have their players do, whatever they want with the ball and stuff, just kind of free. So, sometimes that's tough to play against rather than, a team that is tactically, sound and everything. So, no, it's different. And then obviously with Tajikistan going down a goal in the first 2 minutes, we have to. There's a lot of time in the game. You have to come back from that and fight, and we did. And yeah, we got the 3 points. So that's what matters.
Off the field, what has the experience been like for you and the rest of the guys? Because there was video that popped out. I think it was with Mexico and Japan, where one team is there and they give them they basically give them the shoot down the middle of the hallway where it's like they're going to celebrate them and all that kind of stuff. Have you had much interaction with all of the other teams that are there, considering it's all in that one location?
Yeah, I would say we share actually a meal room with 4 other countries, or I think, yeah, 4. So we share with England, Zambia, South Korea, and Fiji. So they're all in our hotel, but we haven't really got a chance to like interact with them a lot. But no, I think you know it's kind of different in a sense. Do you want to interact? It's a World Cup environment. Your focus and everything. Obviously, there's times off the field where you want to get to know kids from Fiji, like where you get to see that every day. So yeah, yeah.
I was going to ask if there are like the exchanges of the gear, like if you had extra scarves and pins or anything. Is it like the Olympic experience, one of those kinds of things? That was what popped into my head when I saw that kind of stuff.
No, maybe towards the end, maybe, but no, not yet.
When you mentioned the fan support, and that's another thing that we've seen on the international feed, is that there are supporters of the United States that are there that last time I checked, it's not a 45-minute hot flight coming from the eastern part of the United States to go see things in Qatar. What's it? How big a fan support are we talking here, and what's it like to see all that support?
No, honestly, it's crazy, and pretty much everyone's families, I think, is here supporting even more than I mean, at least 2 to 3 people each player. So, and there's also people. My parents actually met some people that live here and that are from like Austin. Yeah, so you have people supporting from here that live here that don't even follow us usually, but came to support. And all of our parents obviously are big supporters. We have a loud crowd, and that's only going to help us going forward in the tournament.
What's it like having your parents there with you?
No, I mean, it's great. This is, something I've dreamed of since I was a little kid to play in a World Cup. So, to have them here supporting me means everything. They've given me the platform and everything that I need to succeed. Um, and yeah, it's just really grateful for them to be here.
Do you remember, and this is going back to when you were named to the squad, do you remember
Yeah.
how you found out that you were a part of the squad?
Oh, I think.
Was it a call, a text,
Oh,
email, or
no. So we were actually at the camp in Fayetteville. And it was the day I was heading out because I obviously only had to drive to Fayetteville. So my dad came to pick me up, and then Gonzalo, the head coach, came out to me and had told me that I would be going with them to the World Cup, and yeah, just a super exciting moment, and yeah.
And it's one of those where you mentioned Atlanta United, and you mentioned what it's like to be a part here in the southeastern United States. It's where it's another feather in the cap for you as a professional or a soon to be professional. We'll go ahead and make that. We'll go ahead and make that push. But it's another feather in your cap. It's another feather in Atlanta United's cap, and it speaks to your growth as a footballer and to what Atlanta United has provided you over time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, I've been at Atlanta United since, I was U12, with, Mike Lynch as my U12 coach. So, it's been a long journey, all the way up, getting minutes with the first team now. So, no, I have nothing but, good words for Atlanta United, obviously, and just a big thanks to them for everything they've done for me so far, and they're continuing to do and continuing to push me and my level. And hopefully, the goal is to become a main player in the first team someday. So yeah.
You mentioned that you've been together for 3 weeks as a group. How long do you think it took for all of these different players coming from all of these different teams and all of these different philosophies to understand what Gonzalo was looking for? And so you can look to your left, what you want to do. You can look to your right, it's like to get into that rhythm. How long did it take to get there, or are there still some pieces of that rhythm that still need to be picked up?
Yeah, I think obviously all the camps that we've had, the past 2 years, honestly, leading up to the World Cup has been working, on that cohesion and all that stuff, because it is difficult to have players from different cultures and different environments and different play styles and all of that, to come together and play under one. But I think we all have one goal in common, is to win a World Cup, and that's what makes it easy to come together and, play together and all of that. But obviously there's still moving parts to it. There's still, getting used to each other in World Cup environment. There's different needs for different players, understanding just each other more, and that comes as the tournament goes on. But yeah, obviously it's getting better.
So you have a couple of days. Well, actually, you probably had the most amount of days getting ready for Burkina Faso. Then you've got to cram for the test with Tajikistan. Now you've got to cram for the test with Czechia coming up on Tuesday. Any early thoughts? Any early study hall? Any early intel on what Czechia is bringing to the table?
Nothing yet, honestly.
Okay.
We're still kind of getting over the game from obviously last night. But we'll definitely look into that over the next couple days. But I mean, the goal's the same, is to get 3 points no matter what. So
Looking forward to it. Fantastic to see you. It's been great to see you out on the pitch so far, repping the U.S., and obviously we'll be keeping an eye on things. We know you're getting into the knockout, 6 points out of 2 matches so far, matchup with Czechia on Tuesday. Coop, it's great to see you. Thanks for dropping by. I'll be keeping an eye on it. We'll catch up soon.
okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Cooper Sanchez, everybody. And that
10
was
solid
minutes with Cooper Sanchez. And that was Cooper Sanchez hanging out with us and breaking everything down so far from what's going on in Qatar. And that was a good get. And once again, seriously, it's a Monday. I don't know. It's a Monday. It's one of those things. Hang on just a second, man.
So how's it feel to be half a world away for 3 weeks and running?
All right. So
Great. New
hang
opportunities,
stop.
excited to be, with
Stop. You hit a button and you're just kind of like, you hit a button and you want something to work. And the way that the sequence works, when you want to try to delete something, it'll go to the next one in the file thinking you want to play it. So once again, John and Technology, there you go. Hour number 1 on Monday. All right. Once again, as always, thanks to U.S. Soccer for breaking it. Alex, it is chaos. It is absolute chaos. But no, thanks to everybody at U.S. Soccer for helping us out there. As the U17 World Cup continues, your public service announcement there is we are going to continue to try and bring you U.S. YNT folks here. And if we can get them, the time difference is 8 hours from studio here to Qatar. And so if we can catch them before dinner, local time, they would be live on the morning show. And so we're going to effort live on the morning show as the U.S. continues to advance in the tournament. So we've got a couple of ideas, and thanks to our friends at U.S. Soccer for efforting on a Sunday morning our time to give us Cooper Sanchez to catch up before their third match with Czechia coming up tomorrow. And obviously we'll keep an eye on that one on the Big 55 off to our left to update you on everything that has happened this morning. We do have a couple of matches going on at 10:45, but Switzerland ended up beating Mexico early 3-1. Same score, the Korea Republic over the Ivory Coast. Germany is leading El Salvador 4-0 in Group G. That one is in the 52nd minute. A little further along, Colombia leading the DPR of Korea. That one is 2-0 and 9:45. So starting instantaneously on Telemundo. So why don't we go to Telemundo and see what's going on there? Telemundo. And so we'll see what's going on with Telemundo as they are airing Hoy Dia at the moment, and that is not soccer. So maybe Telemundo Deportes? I don't know. So somewhere they on the Telemundo chain, it is supposed to be what we would see in the U17s. But at 9:45, it is listed as Zambia and Brazil in Group H, and Honduras and Indonesia in Group H. Egypt in Group E is playing England. That one is at 10:45 on FS2, so that one's going to kind of wrap up our day. And at 10:45 on Universo, it is Venezuela and Haiti wrapping up things in Group E. So you're starting to get the end of the match days with this particular run of games. But the big match that we're going to be paying attention to is tomorrow, 9:45, FS2 Peacock Universo, Czechia and the United States. Last match in the group stage in Group I. So far, the U.S. has qualified for the knockouts with their first two wins, but they want to run the table, get 9 points as they head into the knockout stage after tomorrow. But yeah, we're going to keep an eye on everything in the U17 World Cup, and hopefully we can effort folks from Qatar. If we can get them live, we'll get them live. And if we have to get them on tape because of practice and things like that, then it'll be taped, and then we'll flip it like we were able to do with Cooper. So thanks once again to our friends at U.S. Soccer, and thanks to them for making that happen. We'll keep an eye on the U17 tourney as we go. All right, now, what else is going on this morning? I want to say hi to everybody and run through the promos and get you ready for everything here. So morning, Abby. Morning, Alex. And let's see. Morning, Dell. Morning, David. And let's see. I saw Rich is there, and there's Rich. And yeah, Rich and morning 4 card. Yeah, Groundhog Day. You're not kidding. So you've got all of that for this morning, and we do have the dates and times for the semifinals. Like I said, I mentioned that you might hear construction. I hope you don't to a whole degree. The Union and NYC are next Sunday night. Eagles and Lions at home the exact same time. And yeah, expecting zero local coverage of the Union. So we do have the times on all of those matchups. And let me get into the schedule here really quickly for next week. It is Saturday the 22nd, 9:30, so 9:42, Saturday night. Vancouver and LAFC at BC Place in the semifinals. Sunday afternoon on Apple TV and MLS Season Pass in Cincinnati at TQL. It is going to be Cincinnati and Messi and Friends in the 2-3. And then Philly hosts NYC at 7:30, as Rich mentioned, 7:42 kick at Subaru Park. And that one is, once again, your late matchup there with those. So Saturday and Sunday has it all locked out and figured for 3 of the 4. And then your fourth one, Monday Night Football, FUTBOL from the Murph Dragon. Minnesota travels to San Diego. And remember, these are one-offs. This is not best of 3s again. So Monday Night Football, 10:12 Eastern kick. San Diego hosting Minnesota on MLS Season Pass and Apple TV from the Murph Dragon. So it is, you've got 1 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, the 23rd, and then Monday Night Football on the 24th. as we go. So that's where we are right now with everything and the survivors as they have been discussed here in the first hour of the show. So, looking at the MLS playoffs, we mentioned the winners and such, but that one statistic with NYC really did stick out with me, where it was 3-1, and Charlotte only had 16 shots, 1 on target the entire time. And I wanted to grab quotes from Dean Smith after the match, and let me see if I can get into. So Ashley Westwood, going back into. So Dean Smith was asked about Wolf Zaha in 2026, mentioned he'd be back for the preseason. They'll have a healthy Pep Biel as well. He didn't go into too much depth about a midseason loan. And where was the quote? Mentions Adelson Miranda. Didn't get the result we deserved tonight. That was the quote that I was trying to find with Dean Smith after the matchup where Charlotte lost to NYC. We didn't get the result we deserved tonight. I'd like to know what, with the output that he got, what result he thinks he deserves. A closer game, maybe? NYC pretty much had control of it, and Dean Smith feels he didn't get the result they deserved. So that's like I said, that is the Dean Smith quote that kind of stuck with me after the match with Charlotte losing to NYC. I mean, Minnesota and Seattle just absolutely thrived on the chaos, and we kind of went into it a little bit with A, but I still don't know how you go up a man. You were up 2-0 to start. Then it's 2-1. You're up a man. And there's always that thing about 2 goals being the most dangerous lead in soccer, blah, blah, blah. And then when you're down a man, you play a little more freely. I don't know. But you end up with all of that with Rosales. I don't know why Rosales felt compelled to do that. And Kendra D. St. Albin used the word silly. She's absolutely correct. It was a silly play. And you go down to 10 men. You put your team in a vice at that point, an absolute issue. But Seattle, and we'll talk to Nico Moreno about it later in the week, how you're up 2-1 and you give up 2 goals. And like I said, I don't know how Marcanic was at the back post that alone. He waited until the last possible minute, and he views himself. I think Andrew Wiebe mentioned on the broadcast how he views himself kind of as like a fullback or like a running back in American football, where you hit the hole and you wait to the last minute, and then you hit the hole and you get the yardage. Marcanic did that. And it ended up at 3-2, 3-3, and then the PKs. And I want to go into the PKs really quickly because it was 10 frames. And Forecard, you're absolutely right. 1 goal, 3 matches, lost both home and regulation. Absolutely true. So here was the rundown of the PKs in Minnesota and Seattle. I would play the whole freaking thing, but it would take entirely too long to absolutely play the entire thing. So you end up with, do I want the feed? Is that what I want? Do I want the feed? No, I don't want the feed. I need the play-by-play is what I need. Where's the run? Where's the rundown? Okay, so we start. So Pereira misses off the top. So Pereira missed off the top. Rusnak scores to make it 1-0. Minnesota scores to tie it at 1. Jordan Morris hit the crossbar. And so now you're back to even. Owen Jean scores. Jackson Reagan had a really nice penalty to get past St. Clair. Then Morris Duggan scored. Ryan Kent scores. Michael Boxall scores. Paul Rothrock scores. Carlos Harvey scores. Georgie Manungu scores. Then Marcanic is saved from Andrew Thomas. And you're thinking, okay, advantage Seattle. Obed Vargas hit the post. Hassani Dotson is saved. Hassani Dotson didn't look like he was all that confident in wanting to be there. Then you have Di Rosario saved. So you had 4 saves in a row. You had, 3 out of 4. So Marcanic is saved by Thomas. Vargas hit the post. Dotson is saved by Thomas. Di Rosario is saved by St. Clair. You had 3 out of 4 in a row saved late. Then it was Lungwane scoring. Alex Roldan scores. St. Clair scores. Andrew Thomas and hit the crossbar. And Andrew Thomas, he was just going to blast it right past St. Clair. And we talk about the game being in margins. Andrew Thomas hit the crossbar flush. And I give Andrew Thomas credit on a couple of different levels. One, where he dislocates his finger. He dislocated his finger. Had it pop back in place and taped in place. And he ends up coming back to finish the shootout. And then when he hit the crossbar and it was over and he's, being, consoled by his teammates, he's literally going to his teammates and going, my fault, my fault, my fault. So, and then Andrew Thomas and Stephen Fry, it's going to be one of the questions that we'll ask Nico about next time we see him. But that's a question for next year with Stephen Fry and Andrew Thomas. I mean, I don't think you necessarily call it a goalkeeper controversy with a 1 and a 1A, but who's going to be your starter? Do you bring Stephen Fry back? What are you looking at for the future? But Andrew Thomas, I give him credit on two fronts. I give him credit on two fronts for what happened with that PK shootout and with what happened at the end of the PK shootout. But 3 of 4 saved in one stretch. You get to 10 frames, and it wraps up at 7-6. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the show that got canceled by MTV, Ridiculousness, you may as well just show the PKs or show the last 30 minutes of this match, and then you end up with what happened in that particular matchup. So, yeah, absolutely crazy that you had Seattle and Minnesota go to the extent that it did. Then you had, we mentioned Cincinnati and Columbus, then Miami and Nashville. And with Miami and Nashville, once again, because you didn't have Luis Suarez, and I think that this is an interesting point for Javier Mascherano in the semifinal, you didn't start Luis Suarez because he was out on a red card, or he was out on disco. He was out on a disco suspension. And I do have an update on that after we talk about the match in and of itself. I do have an update on disco coming from behind and suspending Luis Suarez. There actually is a rule on the books. We'll get into that in a bit. So your lineup without Messi, without Luis Suarez, here's your lineup. Rocco Rios Novo in net. Jordi Alba, Noah Allen, Maxi Falcone, and Frey. Baltazar Rodriguez, Busquets, DePaul, Allende, Silvetti, and Messi. So Silvetti was up top with Messi in whatever you want to call it. You want to call it a 4-4-2, fine. But you know that Jordi Alba is going to bomb forward, and they're going to rotate a bit, and you'll have 3 at the back, and Baltazar Rodriguez, drifts back a little bit. Busquets may drift back a little bit. Allende, with assistance there. That's how it looked for Inter Miami going up against Nashville. We had Lucas Panzica on looking at that lineup. Joe Willis, Bauer, Mayer, Zimmerman, and Nahar at the back. Matthew Corcoran again getting the start, the 19-year-old. Eddie Tagset and Yazbek, your other 2 midfielders in the listing. And then your attack, Suraj Mukhtar and Alex Muil. I'm still trying to figure out the foul that Sam Suraj was called for to end a sentence in a preposition on Maxi Falcone. I've zaprudered the thing. And if you watch the match, you'll see the replay, and BJ Callahan looks at the replay, comes back, and he comes back out, and he just goes, wow. You look at him, and he's just trying to figure out, you got to be kidding me with that call. And I've zaprudered it, and if there was any contact that Suraj had with Maxi Falcone, it was minimal at best. And Maxi Falcone, if you're Suraj and you step on the edge of Maxi Falcone's boot the way that you do, and then Falcone kind of jumps in the air, I can't tell how much of Suraj's boot ends up on Falcone, and you get the foul called on Suraj because it's hard to tell. But if it was, Suraj jumping on Falcone's boot, it was the slightest of slight. And then Falcone jumps for accentuation, and you get the foul on Suraj. And BJ Callahan goes, come on, So slight at best, and that's because I slowed the thing down, but then, the accentuation, and you're looking for reactions and those kinds of things. So looking at the stats off of those lineups, you end up with Messi with 2, Allende, the benefactor of 2 in 3 minutes. As Nashville's trying to chase the game, it ends up at 4-0. 10 shots for Miami, 5 of them on target, 4 of them in the back of the net. For Nashville, 12 shots, 4 on target, 4 block shots, 3 for Messi and friends. And let's see, 6 corners, all to Nashville. If you're well ahead, it doesn't really matter. 7 crosses, 4 to Messi and friends, 3 offsides, 2 to Nashville. 4 saves for Rocco Rios Novo, 1 for Joe Willis. 37 fouls called in the match, 21 for Nashville, 16 for Messi and friends. And you end up with 4-0 at the time of the final whistle. Total team XG was only 1.5 to 0.7, 22 shots total, 12 to Nashville and 10 to Messi and friends. But once again, it's what you do with it when you got it. Brace for Messi in the first half, brace for Allende in the second half, 4-0, and that's it for Nashville. And so next week, what we will try to do is we'll try and catch up with some of our friends here on the network and have them kind of give their postmortems for their teams. Will Pelagic in Charlotte, Lucas Panzica in Nashville, Chris Doran in Columbus, and have them give their eagle eye looking forward with what they saw in their series to get you ready for the semifinal. And we'll try and catch up with Dave Leno as well and get his 411 on what's going on with Philadelphia, and find out what's going on from the Union perspective as they get ready in the Eastern Conference semifinals. So that's the rundown and the thought there with Miami and Nashville. And then you go into the match last night, and like we were talking about with Abe, it was one of those where this weekend it was the battle of the extremes. It really was. And it was either a blowout or one that was going to keep you on the edge of your seat. I don't think NYC and Charlotte was all that particularly close. Minnesota and Seattle we talked about. Cincinnati gets a goal in the 86th minute. They win 2-1. We'll catch up with Laurel Phaler next week as well. Miami, Messi and friends, a blowout of the 6. San Diego in the 1-8. No worries taking on Portland. You end up with a goal by Dreyer in the 5th, and it was a difficult one to play. So it was a great ball by Valakari, but well handled by Dreyer to get into the back of the net in the 5th minute. Then Pellegrino gets one in the 17th. That's your score at the break. Then Pellegrino gets his brace in the 53rd. Dreyer gets his brace in the 79th. It's 4-0 at that point. Then Mosqueda gets his red with 10 to go. And it was pretty much that was all she wrote for that one. It looks like he might have actually made it. He might have actually made it in some manner, way, shape, or form. We go to Bart Keeler. Are you in line or are you out of line?
I am out of line, John. I'm in my car.
Wow. Congratulations. We didn't know where Bart was going to be this morning. We didn't know if he was going to be back at the Casa de Keeler or if he was going to be in the tag office. And so now we have our answers. So mazel tov, sir, on your tag.
Thank you. Yeah, new car. So if anyone feels generous, coffee.com/SoccerForUSPod.
There you go.
It's been an adventure, John.
I don't doubt that. So what'd you settle on?
It is a 2024 Hyundai Tucson.
Okay. I can somewhat relate as someone who has a Subaru Forester. I can somewhat relate of one of those vehicles. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to discuss with you so far. I know that we wanted to get into Yanks Abroad, which kind of gets us into reffing down here involving Tyler Adams. U17s, we had Cooper Sanchez on in the first half hour, and right now it's 2 for 2 and waiting for Czechia, and it's another showcase for folks like Kevin Sullivan, Maxi Carrizo, and Cooper Sanchez et al. On the world stage.
Yeah, I'll say I think probably wished we had a slightly larger March victory against Tajikistan based on how they performed in their first game. But as always, John, these are games to just see what talent we have available in our pool. And so far, I think the guys you expected to look good have looked decent. Obviously, Kevin Sullivan with a lot of testicular fortitude.
Yes, there you go. Yes,
in for his penalty kick attempt. But also good to see Cooper Sanchez out there, especially because I think Atlanta United, this is my slight rant, I think Atlanta United does need to really focus on the academy structure it has and the available talent in the Atlanta area, because we've seen a steady stream of guys playing for the youth national teams. And I think focusing on that from an Atlanta United perspective may help resolve some of the roster issues that we continually have year after year after year when we decide to sign center backs who aren't actually very good.
Mm-hmm. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on all of that. And like I said, we're going to keep an eye on what's going on in Qatar and hopefully effort more folks from the U.S. national team hotel and place where they have a roof over their head for the remainder of the tournament. Yanks abroad, and this kind of gets into reffing down here a little bit. And I know that, and the word came out while you were in the tag office, and I want to get the wording correct from U.S. Soccer. Came out literally an hour and 4 minutes ago. Timmy Tillman added to the USMNT roster for November matches against the World Cup qualified nations Paraguay and Uruguay. Tyler Adams, Sean Zawatsky withdraw due to injury. The roster stands at 24. Heading into the final matches of 25, Tillman won appearance for the USMNT following his change of association to represent the U.S. in 23. And Tyler Adams, Sean Zawatsky withdrawn due to injuries suffered in their club matches this past weekend. Paraguay on the 15th, in Chester at 5 o'clock. Uruguay, and that one's at the Pirate Ship in Tampa on the 18th against Uruguay. Now, and this is the first chance I think I've had to go over the roster with you, but let's start with the sub out. Timmy Tillman in, Adams and Zawatsky out.
I mean, no disrespect to Timmy Tillman. Fine. I don't really think that this is a move for to bring in a guy who I think has a real shot at making a World Cup roster, if I'm going to just be totally honest. Obviously, Tillman is based in the United States, LA to be specific, so, probably had more to do with the fact that he picked up the phone call and was local. That said, is also going to sound hard, but I never have understood the Sean Zawatsky inclusion. He got called in again after being called in December and not playing at all. He didn't play at all during the Gold Cup. He wasn't called in for that. I do not understand why this name continues to just like a mold spore keep popping up in U.S. soccer rosters, because I don't think he really does anything that makes the team better. But hey, you know what? I guess we got to have someone who people just are continually confused by. So got to be honest with that one. Whatever. Tyler Adams is a little bit more concerning. Obviously, we know he has some injury history. That is, for me, the one that you go, okay, how long is this going to be? Because as we'll get into the roster, I'm sure there's a couple of other injuries that, John, are very concerning. I mean, he addressed it in his press conference. Mauricio Pochettino did. Jedi Robinson not here for that, prolonged injury recovery, I think, is what we're at now. We hope it's an injury recovery. There are other guys that are picking up knocks and aren't here. Chris Richards, obviously. Christian Pulisic is another one. You are at the point in the club season, though, that you hope that these are just the injuries that you get at the start of the season and before we get to winter break. Hopefully they get them out of their system before March of next year, and so that we can actually have a real full roster. Because, John, if you're going to ask me my one-word takeaway from this roster, it feels experimental, which we were told we were done with. And that part is also a little confusing.
Then we mentioned Adams kind of on purpose, obviously, for the news peg element of it, but it was a nasty collision that he had with Adam Smith in the early minutes of a big loss against Aston Villa. And Adams stays in the match. Smith leaves with a concussion after the collision. They were headed in opposite directions trying to clear a ball. And Andoni Iraola was asked, he said Smith was worse off than Adams, and then he added, I hope that in his case it's nothing there. So obviously we all hope there's nothing there, but you're looking at something that you can't mess with, and you have to just let it be, and don't push it, don't press it, don't do anything, because you don't want to jeopardize anything longer term, whether you're Andoni Iraola with Bournemouth, who's chasing after European football, or Tyler Adams and his spot in that roster or in the national team stuff. So you've got to let this go and just let it ride out. You can't sit there and press anything here.
Correct. And John, that is the thing with why we have a lot of head injury protocols right now in soccer, because these are things that you say, oh, well, he got his bell wrong, he'll be fine, shake it off, or, oh, you just knocked knees, you'll be all right. The head is something that you can't just go in and fix with a surgical procedure or with a little bit of ice. And again, Tyler Adams has an injury history. Not with this type of injury, but it just is one of those that anytime Tyler Adams has injured his name, you're going to be a little concerned, because we know that he have a tendency to have long spells of injury. Hopefully this one is not. Hopefully both he and Smith are recovered by the next time they have to play a full-scale soccer match, because you don't want to see guys out long-term with head injuries. Hopefully, honestly, for both of them, missing the international break will give them, I think, if we're going by NFL concussion standards, John, a full, I know, his eye roll. But that protocol of like, okay, you get evaluated, you get some treatment, you get evaluated again, those evaluation standards now granted the NFL does it for a week because they want to make sure people can get back and play, but you do have the full length of time that you would want to evaluate a concussion or a head injury. That is the positive here. But as a referee, I will say these are the worst injuries to see, because unfortunately, whether you like to say it or not, head injuries are one that the referee, half the time you can't call it, because two guys just go up for a header and they run into each other. And it's not a foul, but it sucks, because you got to stop play, and people are like, well, especially I'll say at my level, because, 15-year-olds are notoriously in full control of what their body does at any given point in time. But, every parent thinks that somehow their little baby has just been murdered, and they want the referee to give a yellow card, when the reality is, player A and player B jumped up and hit each other in the head. Unfortunately, that happens in soccer, and it is scary, because it is so, I don't want to say it's common, but it is such a prevalent and underlying possibility when we're playing this game.
And it's something that you have to give the benefit of the doubt for. And one of the things that is annoying as all ish to me is when it looks like someone is taking advantage of a ref that needs to keep an eye on head injuries because it is a priority, where you won't have anything close to any kind of contact, and then you have a player take advantage of it and go down to slow down momentum and those kinds of things. That to me is one of the more disappointing aspects of it, that you want to take advantage of a situation that is incredibly serious within the game itself.
I mean, John, I had an incident this weekend. I was AR1, and I saw it happen on the far side. There was a corner kick, and a ball was, kicked in. Kid goes up for a header, comes down, kind of doesn't fall down to the ground, but like stays down a little bit, holds his head a little bit, gets back up, and starts running off. After a goal was scored, by the way. And so the goal scored, and the AR on the far side tells the referee, like, hey, man, this dude's got a head injury, points to his head. And you could see the kid kind of take that moment right after the head. He didn't get his head hit by another player, but, you could kind of tell he felt like he got his head hit, or the ball maybe didn't come off the way it needed to, or something, right? Kid, takes the crotches down real quick, puts his hand to his head, and is kind of feeling it. Gets back up, and he seems fine, but like at 15, 16, 17 years old, as the referees, it is kind of our duty to say, hey, man, go get checked out. We got a trainer. And that causes a big thing, and the coach is mad at us for having the audacity to tell him that this kid has a head injury. And you're right, because I don't want to ever, and again, this is very much a youth referee thing, I don't want to be at all responsible for a kid getting a concussion or not getting adequate assessment, any sort of injury, especially at the levels that I'm refereeing at, where we all have most of these leagues require some sort of athletic trainer or medical professional on at the field at all times. So we need to utilize those resources. Yeah, dude, you could be fine, but go get checked real quick. Just if anything, it take a couple seconds to make sure you are fine and kind of do that internal test while having someone look at you to make sure that your eyes aren't in the wrong dilation or your head doesn't look askew.
Yeah, and so that's just one of the things that, and I don't know why coaches on some levels feel compelled to sit there and have that as part of your dossier. It's like, well, go down, that's one of the things that I think that we all need to be vigilant about in these kinds of things, and just for the good of the game, keep an eye on these kinds of things. A, when it's the correct thing to do, and B, when people are trying to take advantage of the correct thing to do to slow down momentum in a game that you feel like you need to have that done.
But
Let's see.
Especially, John, for a head injury, always err on the side of caution.
Absolutely true. All right, so Yanks abroad, and it was Brendan Aronson with an assist at Nottingham Forest, Chris Richards 90 minutes in the matchup against Brighton. So obviously Oliver Glasner is still going to try and find things allegedly to complain about.
Yeah, Chris Richards, man, he's just playing so much. We need to make sure he doesn't, play in a national team game.
Falarin Balogun had a rough day, had a goal and a red, so he was that close to the soccer hat trick.
Decent midweek though. He did have a decent midweek in European play, so there's at least that.
Yep. 4-1 loss.
I was just saying he got the red card so he could get a head start on his flight to
there you go. So Balogun gets 44 minutes, a goal and a red, and a 4-1 loss. Tanner Tessman 90 minutes and a 3-2 loss for Lyon against PSG. McKenzie 79 minutes in a 1-1 draw with Lorient. From L'Equipe on Tanner Tessman. The American has been a catastrophe for weeks, but he still plays because there's no competition. The ball he lost to Vitinha was incomprehensible and offered on a platter, the second PSG goal. His teammates later feared giving him the ball under pressure. He conceded the corner on PSG's winner in the 5th minute of stoppage time. So L'Equipe ishing on Tanner Tessman over the weekend. Joe Scally.
Not incorrect.
Yeah. Okay, just checking. Scally
but
and Reina.
I'll say this. It's unfair to judge anyone in the league on anyone's performance against PSG when I don't think Lyon's salary is $17 gajillion. So
yes, that is the actual number. Yes, that is actually true.
Joe
Scally,
Gio how much money they have. We don't know.
17. Well, you said 17 gajillion. I think that's about right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. After the 3-1 win over Cologne, Bild praised Joe Scally for how he masterfully, in quotation marks, handled the challenge of Said El Mallah. Reina's cameo, it was noted that he was, quote, once again unable to show his quality. Joe Scally, 90 minutes for Gladbach against Cologne. Leonard Maloney, 90 minutes and a loss at Eintracht Frankfurt for Mainz. James Sands, apparently 4 out of 5, so he got a B for his time with St. Pauli and a loss at Freiburg. Noah Banks got a B for Augsburg in their match at Stuttgart. Christopher Lund, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 6, so he got the B. So Christopher Lund, 66 minutes with Cologne at a loss. Tillman under 45 in a blowout win against Heidenheim, and Gio Reyna under 16 minutes in the 3-1 win against Cologne. So there you go.
Let me take Joe Scally for a second, because I do think he's the name that, and all these guys that Mauricio Pochettino has tried at right back, Freeman and others, even Tristan Blackman for Lord knows why. Joe Scally just continues to do a really good job of being a pretty average right back in the Bundesliga. And I know that sounds like, oh, he's not very special. No one's saying he's special, but at some point you have to just look at a guy who has, for now 3 years, been a consistent starter on a team in the Bundesliga and has not done anything to lose that starting job on the whole. And when he has slipped up a little bit, has usually recovered and made sure that he does stay in that starting lineup. And I'm glad he's in camp this time around, because it's really frustrating when we're calling in. No offense to Alex Freeman, none at all. I think he's a good prospect. Prospect being the key word there, John. But you cannot compare what he's doing, which is being a really good right back in MLS, to what Joe Scally does week in and week out in the Bundesliga against just factually better competition. So I'm glad he's on this roster. Gio, on the other hand, if we're going to stay in Mönchengladbach, Gio is concerning to me, John. I'll understand that back in 2022, we thought Gio Reyna would be the next biggest thing for the U.S. Obviously, that World Cup did not go according to his plans. They made sure it did not go to his parents' plans, and they made sure everyone knew about it. And I know he's had ups and downs, but I don't think he's recovered mentally. And I think and that's just my read on the situation. He's had injury problems. He's had fitness problems when he's not injured. He's had form problems. And so while you see he has great skill and great potential, availability is an ability, right? Availability is an ability. And the
There you
dude
go. Nicely done.
never
Yes.
find a way to stay on the field. And I'm glad he's in camp, because if you're just looking at talent, he's one of our most talented players, if not the most talented player in the player pool. But I had this discussion with a guy on Twitter, and they're like, well, if he's healthy, you got to call him. Like, I mean, I'm healthy. It doesn't mean just because someone is healthy. Well, I'm not healthy, John. My knees hurt today. But, just because he's healthy doesn't necessarily mean he's fit to play soccer. If you ever listen to the Scuff podcast, Vince, who is a former college football offensive lineman, talks a lot about Gio's sprints and top speed. And jokingly says we're on Gio Reyna's sprint watch. And the reality is Reyna can't go fast. He don't do fast very well. Not exactly a bad thing. I mean, I think he's playing in a position where sprinting is not necessarily necessary, where he is playing on the field for most of the time. But in order to be an effective soccer player, you got to go fast on occasion. Ricky Bobby said it best: "I want to go fast," and sometimes you got to. And I think for Gio, we're just vastly approaching the man what could have been, little John O'Brien-ish, if you will, where you go, man, this dude had all the skills in the world and just never could find a way to actually play soccer long enough to make him worthwhile. Hopefully, I'm wrong. Hopefully, I'm wrong. And this camp, we see him. I think Mauricio Pochettino said it best. This is just for them to get a feel of Gio, to, I guess, introduce each other again, talk to him. But I think even he sees this as, yeah, he's probably not going to play much, knowing what his fitness level is.
Mm-hmm. Last two countries, Italy and Spain. Milan has a friendly scheduled against Virtus Entel on Friday for Pulisic.
And I'm sure Christian Pulisic will play.
Yeah. So Pulisic got a 5 in under 20 minutes in a draw at Parma. Weston McKennie was even Steven, according to Gazzetta dello Sport, in the draw against Torino. Kremoski got a cameo against AC Milan for Parma. Johnny hasn't played in 10 weeks for ATLUTD, and Barca did not release Diego Koken for the U20s, but he's off this week to Denmark and Serbia for the U21s. Insert head-scratching moment there. Let me get into the roster for this particular camp. And I know that you have issues and concerns and things. My first question for you is, why in the wide world of sports do we have 4 keepers for 2 matches? We're getting 45 minutes each?
I don't get that. I mean, I doubt that. I think it'll be Matt playing all, 180 minutes. I don't really understand, John, personally, because I don't know. I mean, Jurgen Klinsmann, good Lord. Jonathan Klinsmann got called in, last camp.
Wow.
I know, I'm sorry. Klinsmann gets called into his last camp, doesn't play any at all. Maybe he impressed, but I don't know. I mean, I think this goalkeeper pool is just so mid that it doesn't really matter. personally, I would have preferred Koken over all these guys, but I'm okay with Schulte. I'm okay with Celentano in terms of, I think they're perfectly good MLS goalkeepers. Clint is fine. I don't know. None of these guys move me. They don't move, and I think if you are going to be honest with yourself, goalkeeper is a position of serious doubt for this national team right now.
Taking it position by, you've got 9 defenders, a lot of them in double digits when it comes to caps, except for John Tolkien, who is chasing after his 5th. Arfston, Dest, Freeman, McKenzie, Ream, Robbins, Miles, Scally, Tolkien, and Trusty on your defense.
Yeah, Tolkien and Trusty getting calls back. A little bit interesting. I wasn't sure how Tolkien would actually come into play. I do think that he has a lot to offer this team. It does feel like Max Arfston is Mauricio Pochettino's favorite special boy from MLS, and that's fine. He's been okay for the national team. That's okay. I think we all know that when you ask him to defend, that's never going to happen. He doesn't do that very well, but he is very good when it comes to providing an attacking outlet on that left side. And if we are kind of playing that 3 center back-ish system, then I think Arfston's defensive liabilities aren't as risky. And so, okay, fine. And I think Tolkien kind of fits a little bit in that same mold. He's a better defender, but he's still not like a lockdown defender. He's no Caleb Wiley, but what do I know? Hey, Trusty coming back is good. I think we saw CCV get hurt, and now Trusty's back kind of playing for CCV. So I guess we just swapped him out on our national team roster. So good for him.
There you go. Let's see. Midfielders, we mentioned Gio Reyna, Berhalter, Aiden Morris, Christian Roldan, Tanner Tessman, Timmy Tillman. Forwards up top, Brendan Aronson, Balogun, Diego Luna, Pepe, and Haji Wright. What say you?
Yeah, so I think the forward line is hard because there's a lot of injuries there with omissions, I'll say. Pulisic and Zendejas not being here does kind of make this forward line look a little less appealing, but interested to see Haji Wright come back in to see how he capitalizes on what he did back in October. That's I think the storyline, if you're looking at it, is he had a really good October. He obviously had a really good game against Australia. How does he continue to build that and earn minutes this camp? I think that's what I'm looking for. I am also very curious to see, because I know Sean Zawadzki was in the original list, so that's why I was, again, kind of not sure why we did it. Tessman and Morris are here. Again, I think they both did well and did poorly last camp. It was a lot of, I think, Jekyll and Hyde moments for both of them. If Adams is not here, if Johnny is not here, right? If you are needing a guy to play defensive midfield, and also no Weston McKennie, which is because he's, impressed, I don't know, whining and dining or ranching and pizzaing a new coach or whatever he has to do to win him over.
Ranch on pizza.
If you're not having a defensive midfielder like that, and we're going to run Tessman and Morris out again, I'm curious if we see her more consistent in the game. They've had the window to kind of understand that role. So if we can, I would imagine we're going to see a lot of them this window based on availability and who's here. I am curious how they improved. Oh, they look better throughout the entire game. That's fantastic.
There you go. Really quickly, there was one card and call. Since I talked about Surridge and Maxi Falcone, I wanted to get into the Van Dijk disallowed.
Are we talking about Are we talking about the penalty? Maybe probably wasn't, or the foul that maybe wasn't a foul, but kind of was a foul.
Well, that was Surridge and Falcone, but the disallowed goal by Virgil van Dijk in the Man City match, where it was judged that Andy Robertson deemed in an offside position, impacting the view of Donnarumma, and then it was therefore disallowed on the equalizer. VAR confirmed offside, no goal. Robertson in an offside position deemed to be making an obvious action directly in front of the keeper.
Yeah, I think first, I don't think it's controversial he was offside, right? I think we're good on the fact that he was in an offside position. I guess if you're making any movement toward the ball to kind of, especially in the situation where it is close to, I mean, I think fairly close to the goal and the goalkeeper, if you're making a movement to either head it or kick it or thigh it or any of those types of movement toward the ball to try to redirect it, you're going to put yourself in a position where you're possibly interfering with the goalkeeper. Because if you're the last guy there and you're right in front of the goalkeeper, and right in front meaning you're in front of the goalkeeper like that, unless you're standing completely still, it's hard to argue that your movement is what the goalkeeper thinks or does. Like that. But I understand Liverpool fans will have some problems with it, and I understand their concern. But I think when you look at this through VAR lens, it does come across, yeah, he's making an attempt for the ball and therefore involved in active play because he's potentially interfering with the goalkeeper's line of sight and ability to make a play on the ball himself.
There you go. All right. Go enjoy your car and make sure that it gets to the Casa de Keeler in one piece. As always, it's great to see you, my friend. And it's also great to hear you. And SoccerForUSPod analyzes November and the pre-Timothy Tillman discussion. But as always, go listen to SoccerForUSPod. Listen to them. Listen to what they got to talk about. And Bart will obviously be catching up with you around the corner. Great to hear you, my friend.
Great to hear you as well, John. It's a great day in Atlanta because we're getting women's professional soccer back here in the city. It feels right. It feels right, John.
You know it. And we're going to be talking about that here for a little bit here for the remainder of the show. So amidst all the dog barking and all the drilling, we're going to talk about that. But before we go any further, I wanted to bring this moment to you from the weekend before we bring in our buddy Gabe Schray to discuss everything going on in MLS Next Pro and in USL League One, because we got a title in one of those. We got a final in another one. But here's a did you see moment from the weekend, or did you, whether it was social media or what have you, did you, and this is literally for the sickos that are out there, and I am one of those that has a subscription to One Soccer because of our friend Christian Jack, who is part of the network and is one of the dudes that makes that thing tick on a daily basis. So they had their CPL championship on the weekend, and it was in Ottawa. And it was, suffice to say, it was snowing a great deal, literally to the point that they had to clear off the entire playing surface after 90 minutes and going into the second 30 minutes to determine a champion. But you had this moment happen in a downpour of snow, in a blizzard, basically, in Ottawa. And it's from our friends at One Soccer, and it is now being referred to as an icicle kick. And here is why, and you're not going to believe it. Go watch the video, but here's the play-by-play, courtesy of our friends at One Soccer.
Alpha, I believe, nods it out. Now Cloche trying to cross. Anyone's to claim in the air. Bicycle! Oh my golazo! The most incredible goal in CPL history levels this final. The Magic Man makes it 1-1.
Through the snowflakes, David Rodriguez with an incredible finish. Corner kick, balls bouncing around. Cavalry can't clear their lines. We see the initial ball in, and Elba does a good job of getting it out, but the ball's not cleared. And this ball just floats back into a position for Rodriguez, who creeps in and goes overhead kick past Carducci. Incredible finish from David Rodriguez. And we got a tie game.
Sorry, it might help if you unmute yourself. That's what happens when you have the orange ball in a blizzard in Ottawa, and you're playing a championship game. Literally, it was a bicycle kick with an orange ball to equalize, to send it to extra 30. It was insane. So it was out of control completely. So I don't know what I couldn't tell you. But it's one of those moments in the CPL where, yeah, I know, Dr. G, I was muted. I apologize. It's a Monday. So let me once again, I'm gonna recap the next couple of days or weeks, who knows. You might hear, and I'm trying to dance around it, the drilling above my head because of the back deck being torn apart and the front deck being torn apart. So if you hear drilling while I'm talking, they're disassembling the entire back deck over my head, and it's coming in through the back. So I don't know. So if you hear that, I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk through it. And then you have a guard dog who is trying to make sure that no one comes into his office space at the same time that they are drilling above my head. So I apologize the entire time. I'm trying to dance through it as best I can. Now, we're going to try and see what in the wide world of sports is going on. But I figured what I would do is play that as kind of like an appetizer for a championship game. And you have championship games in MLS Next Pro. We have a champion there. We're going to have Gabe Schray talk about that. We have a final in USL League One, and we're going to have him talk about that. We're going to try and have Keeler Hodges coming in next week, later on in the week, to discuss USL Championship. But we're going to bring in Gabe and find out what in the wide world of sports happened in his universe on the weekend. And we bring Gabe. What up? Gabe, what up?
Not much. How are you?
I can hear myself in loop.
Shoot. All right. I broke it. I'm broken this morning. I've been trying to figure this out for a couple minutes.
It's a Monday.
It is a Monday. It's a very Monday type Monday.
Mm-hmm. So there's a loop. There's a loop in your audio port somewhere.
Is that better?
Let me hear. Yes.
I bet that is better because I can't hear you.
Wow. Yeah, because I can hear you fine, but now you can't hear me.
I'm about to give up and just do it the old-fashioned way.
Just do it. Just do it on your phone.
How's that?
I don't know. How is it? I can still. I still got loop in the background.
You're looping bad? All right, let me turn it down on here.
All right. So Gabe's going to be looking at his audio problems and find out what's going on. I can still hear myself in loop in the background. Seriously, just do it off your phone.
Yeah, I'm on a different laptop today. It's just not behaving for me.
No, it's not. It is not behaving for you. So let me set the table in Next Pro, and we'll come back to you in a sec. How about that?
Okay, thank you.
All right, there goes Gabe. Gabe and technology on Mondays. It's one of those Mondays where it's just flat out technology. Okay, we do have a champ in MLS Next Pro, and Michael Bradley runs from one end to the other when it comes to his coaching Red Bulls too. But when we had Kalen Carr on last Friday, Kalen was a part of the broadcast team on MLSNextPro.com. It was one of those where I thought that the more chaotic the game was going to be, the more it benefited Red Bulls. The more low scoring the game, it was going to benefit Rapids too. So, of course, I said something, and the exact opposite was, in fact, the case. No surprise there. So you end up with a game that goes completely and totally sideways, and it was completely out of control. And it was, if you weren't watching or if you had an extra screen up, then you had the opportunity to have this broadcast up. It was Joe Malfa and Kalen Carr. So here was your layout. Rapids 2 actually had a 2-0 lead. Score in the 34th, score at 45 plus 1, 2-0 at the break. Then you end up with Mosqueda scoring in the 65th, Roald Mitchell scoring in the 67th. You're tied at 2. Garcia scores in the 78th to make it 3-2 Colorado. Mosqueda from the spot makes it 3-3 with 10 to go. So it was 3-2. And then you end up with this particular moment to tie things up at 3.
A pressure-packed moment in MLS Next Pro Cup.
craziness there to make it 3-3. And then, Gabe, let me hear you.
Is this better?
Yes.
We did it. All we had to do was switch to a cell phone. It's amazing how everything is just a phone now.
Yes. All right. And so it goes 3-3. We go to penalties, and it didn't last very long because you had a keeper come up big in PKs, and it was on the Red Bull side. Here's how you determined your MLS Next Pro Cup champion.
For Harris to keep this shootout going. Harris saved! Causey the hero! The Red Bulls reign in MLS Next Pro!
24-year-old, courtesy of our friends at MLSNextPro.com. Austin Causey, 24 years old, gets the save. Red Bulls 2 are the champs in Next Pro, Gabe. What say you?
Well, it's funny. We talked about this last week, and I think the whole conversation, one thing I kept coming back to was all we're talking about is, can they beat Red Bulls? How will they beat Red Bulls? What do you do to slow down Red Bulls? How could you possibly get around Red Bulls? Now, 3-3 is like a dream scenario for MLS specifically, right? The league has to be thrilled, but it was such an exciting match. They played them well. They did everything right. Obviously, it burns when you lose in a shootout. Very fitting for MLS Next Pro's championship to go to a shootout, right, of all leagues. It was quite chaotic and a lot of fun. So that's about what my thoughts are at. I don't think it gets more fun than that.
When you look at the season in general, and this is where you break out, this is where we break out the MLS Next Pro high school yearbook. When we were in high school, you'd always buy the yearbook from whoever was selling it, and it would be like $75. And you said, I've got to have the yearbook, so everybody can sign it and everything. You would always have the stuff in the back, your senior superlatives, most likely to MVPs or whatever, most likely to be president, most likely to do whatever and whatever. When it comes to this season in MLS Next Pro across the board, from what you were able to see from your perch there in Chattanooga, what would be some of the superlatives, whether you're talking team or player, surprises, disappointments? What are your senior yearbook superlatives for MLS Next Pro High School?
Oh, that's great. Good question. Let's start with our independents. I think all the independents will be back and stronger next season. I think all these independents are so fresh to this league, and it's such a difficult league to compete in. They're going to come back with renewed vision, renewed strategy, renewed tact, and maybe approach things a little differently again in 2026, and I think that'll serve them well. I think we'll see the independents be even more competitive next year. Most improved, I would say, is Philadelphia Union. Not that they were bad before, but the depth of talent they have on that roster is incredible, and it continues to grow, and it feels like it's just growing and growing and growing. Of course, if you sell all that talent or move it to your MLS roster, it doesn't really help you next season, but definitely really, really impressive season in my mind for Philly Union too. Red Bulls were a surprise for me as they developed throughout the season. Not that they, by the time we reached the playoffs, it was like, okay, but as they developed throughout the season, it was like, wow, Red Bulls are kind of, staying around, getting hot, doing better and better. I don't know if I have a superlative for that, but just super impressed with them. Superlative would be, I was impressed with Chattanooga FC. I know that's biased. And, I think the league will flip and look very different again next season. There's so many different ways you can approach the roster building and so many different philosophies throughout this league. But one thing that is consistent is that the personnel moves a lot. The independents have already announced they're moving on from a lot of their personnel that have shaped their rosters. So in addition to that, the MLS side clubs and affiliated clubs are moving on a lot of talent. Some is moving up to the A roster. Some is moving on to a different club in the league. Some are moving out of the league. So everybody's going to look very different next season.
USL League One's got a final. We know who it is now. And it's, the team was at the top of the standings. They're the ones that get to host the thing. And when you look at what we've seen, it was one Knox winning 4 of their last 5 to go into the postseason. And they've now run the table. And they are now going to be the ones who are going to be hosting all of this. it was a 1-0 win over Naples. And then it took a while for Spokane Velocity to it was 2-2 after 90. They go to PKs. Spokane gets the win. So Spokane has to now travel from one end of the planet to the other to take on One Knox in the U.S. League One final. Before we talk about the final coming up, I want to look at Naples and I want to look at Portland Hearts of Pine, because you have two first-year clubs who went at it differently and had different things go down in their seasons, where we talked about Portland and how they were a success at the box office and all of that. And they're all going to send us to the poorhouse at Christmas when you go and buy all the gear, like the LL Bean jersey and stuff like that. Naples assembled. They went at it a little differently. They had some early contests and found some rivals in leagues that are not their own. And they end up making their way to the Final Four in League One. When I mention Naples and P-Hop in this season, from what you've been able to watch, what are your takeaways from their time this season in USL League One?
Well, I'm super impressed with what P-Hop was able to build so quickly. And I think that Portland Hearts of Pine is a great example of what USL 1 is all about and how dedicated they are to growing the sport in America, being true to what a community club is supposed to do. They are invested in Portland and Maine. They are invested in the people in that community, and the community has reciprocated that energy. They're very bought in. The future is so exciting with that club. I mean, I don't think I've seen a club with so much promise in my life. The way they've turned out, the way they've continued to support. And of course, you look at it from a strategic standpoint, and Naples, very, very good. They had, all of them had a lot of highs and lows. It was really odd how every single club in USL either came out hot and got cold and then got hot again, or they came out cold, got hot, and got cold again at the wrong time. And it seemed like the entire league kind of had that parity. They kind of waved and flowed and ebbed. So they came out and they were really good, and they cooled off and got hot again and made the playoff and just couldn't carry it all the way to the finish line. Portland, ditto, came out really strong, had some really crucial pieces like Ollie Wright. And if they can hang on to some of those pieces, Naples as well, they're going to have a great season again next year.
You look at the two teams in the final, and you look at a team like One Knox, and you have to go all the way down to Babacar DNA, who is tied for 9th in the league with Anwar Pelaez with Spokane for their leading goal scorers. And so I think that when you look at the offense of this matchup, Pelaez being a 10-goal scorer, DNA being a 10-goal scorer, and then you've got to continue to search and search and search. And then you have Kempish Valdemar, who had 8 for Knoxville, Luis Heel, who had 8 for Spokane. So it's a lot of balance for these clubs where they're coming into this. And so you're having to defend against a lot of different dudes. You can't just focus on the one guy, and we talk about positional gravity and you cut off supply lines, all that kind of stuff. I think this is probably going to be one of the more balanced finals that you will have in USL League One in quite some time, where you're having to go up against Carlos Mauricio Valdez, one of the top keepers in the league, who was second in saves, and you got Sean Lewis for Knoxville. So, I mean, this is about as balanced as I think you can get when it comes to a final, despite the fact that it's in One Knox's barn, but they earn that.
Yeah, and you look at that balance and that parity, and then you say, okay, well, if it's so balanced, where does the win come from? I would say it's a match of chess. And you're not going to have a better pair of coaches in USL League One for a chess match. Lee Veidman is, I've mentioned this a couple of times already throughout the fall here, brilliant tactician. He understands the game, the formations, the way that other clubs play and what they're trying to do, what they're trying to push forward into that final third, whether it's the high press or they're trying to take somebody away down there or pull somebody out of position. He knows, and he knows how they can counter that. But Ian Fuller is all business all the time. They've got the height. He knows how to use that. And it's funny because I feel like all I heard all season long was, oh, One Knox is so good at set pieces. They're so tall. I don't think I saw him score on a set piece in like 7 or 8 matches. It was always just some crazy feed out front. Babacar Dian scored a really nice one at the end of the regular season, just like he was, I don't even know how to describe it. He chested it in. It was beautiful. And they've just had a great season, finding different ways to get the job done. When you take a couple things away, they've got a few more tricks up their sleeve. They're going to be a handful for Spokane. I would say from a tactician standpoint, I believe Eadman's got it going on. He knows what's up. But, man, I don't know if you can overcome one Knoxville in Rocky Top. That is a tall order. And exciting matchup. I mean, it's a good scenario for USL League One and for the fans. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But it's really hard to pick a winner without, I don't know. It's hard to say how they will collide.
Yep. 13 clean sheets on the season for One Knox, 10 for Spokane. Goals, they were both in the middle of the pack. They were fourth and sixth, technically. One Knox tied with Charlotte for fourth in the league at 46 goals scored, Spokane at 44. And like I said, this is about as even as I think it's going to get. I think it's going to go for a while, and then you never know what's going to happen when you go north of 90 minutes. One other thing that I wanted to get into our League One discussion about, and it has to do with the awards finalists, and then I did want to get it kind of into Rodeo SC a little bit. Awards finalists. I want to get your thoughts, who you would vote for in these particular situations. Keeper of the year, Sean Lewis of One Knox, Carlos Marancio at Spokane, or Jason Smith from Red Wolves?
I'm going to say Carlos Marancio for the highlights, not for the consistency. Sean Lewis is more consistent, but Carlos Marancio is fun to watch playing. He's bold and aggressive and likes to come out and make the big play and does it very well.
686 save percentage, a minus 3.36 goals prevented, 10 shutouts, tied for second in the league. Defender of the year, David Garcia at Spokane, Nathan Messer at P-Hop, Jordan Skelton at One Knox.
Oof. Skelton had a really nice year. I want to go with Skelton. Shout out to Skelton for everything he did right, but Nathan Messer is a madman. Have you seen the photos of him after he scores? He's terrifying. I can't imagine trying to get around him. I'm going to pick Messer just because he's a menace and he loves to play and looks like a wild man every time I see him going after it.
6 and 4, 119 clearances, 29 picks, 32 tackles at a 78% success rate, third among fullbacks with a plus 531 goals added mark. Coach of the year, Ian Fuller for One Knox, Scott McKenzie in Chattanooga, Bobby Murphy at P-Hop, Matt Poland for what we saw at Naples.
Okay, so I think Ian Fuller probably deserves the award, and if you put it out to vote, like Ian Fuller has to win by proxy. I would pick Scott McKenzie, though, and here's why. Just because the Red Wolves were doubted so much, so low in the media polls and ranking. In the beginning of the season, they said the Chattanooga Red Wolves are not going to have a good year. They fell behind early, and McKenzie stayed strong, stayed steady, stayed the course, and got it done. I think they had a really, really nice season, all things considered, especially with a cold start. And he kind of kept that chip on his shoulder and definitely made sure to let me know that and really carried it through to a nice season.
All right, two more for you. A young player of the year. Mark Bronick at Union Omaha, Rafa Jarugi with Charlotte, Jackson Kusanzu at Tormenta, Eric Kinsner with Red Wolves.
I'm going to go Kinsner just because of the future promise. Tormenta, though, is a really tempting choice there. You know, they've got a good roster in general that's got a lot of potential depending on what pieces change and how they develop going into this next season.
All right, last one on the board, player of the year. Carson Henderlong at Naples, Juan Carlos Obregon at Westchester, Niall Reed-Steven at Tormenta for player of the year.
Oh, I want to pick Niall Reed-Steven, but you know it's got to be Juan Carlos. What a season for Juan Carlos Obregon. I mean, just out of the gate, swinging, so much fun to watch him in every facet of the game. I don't think I've seen a player with more hustle, a higher motor. He's been involved every single minute of every single match, it feels like. You think he's going to have to take some time off or take a break, and every time the ball's on his side of the field, full speed, full bore, and great scorer.
Golden Boot, 17 goals, a 50.6% shooting accuracy rate, 19.5% shot conversion rate, recorded 42.5% of Westchester's goals, 2 assists on 23 chances created, league leading plus 9.49 goals added mark as he moved into the top 5 league's goal scorers all time. So where are you going to be when we have the League One final coming up next weekend or this weekend?
I don't know. I've got a lot going on. I got some volleyball coming up in the Appalachian Athletic Conference, and involved in a few different things around the community here, and a couple of coaches shows this week, and so who knows? Hopefully, somewhere good.
Well, then we will catch back up with you again this time next week. We'll talk about the League One final. We'll get out the senior yearbook and find out what you think about USL League One high when you come back next week. Great to break down Next Pro with you in League One. We'll chop it up again next week.
You're the man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. There goes Gabe Schray, everybody. And Gabe, once again, play-by-play voice in Chattanooga for Chattanooga FC and Next Pro. And also you hear him on the Plus looking at League One. He's called a bunch of League One matches this year, and that's why we have League One as a part of Gabe's discussion on a weekly basis. Okay, now, I know we kind of buried the lead a little bit with the women's team. What we do know from the article in the Athletic from Ashley Pellet, once again, expansion fee at a record 165, and you're looking at once again Denver. First expansion team obviously was 16, announced earlier this year, owned by AMBSE across the board, expected to debut after the 26th season because you've got to piece things together, infrastructure and planning and all that. So spokesperson to Ashley at the Athletic, we've had a productive engagement with the NWSL and others in its stakeholder group on the possibility of bringing an expansion franchise to Atlanta. Nothing to announce currently, as those conversations are ongoing. So you've got, once again, financial terms not disclosed, reported 165, more than 50% higher than the 110 Denver paid in January. Bay and Boston paid around 53. And so once again, this adds to what we know with AMBSE and how they are continuing to have soccer as a stronghold here in this particular part of the country and really in this particular part of the world. So Ashley Pellet broke that news last night. Then this morning, you had Doug Robertson of the AJC, and Doug had a couple of other things to kind of add to the discussion. Obviously, you have to look at infrastructure, and you have to kind of figure out where we're going from here. And odds are, and this is once again from Ashley Pellet in her article, and it was labeled that the announcement was going to be on Tuesday. So that's kind of where it is leaning at the moment. And so possibly Tuesday is what they were looking at initially. And so Doug is saying maybe introduced on Tuesday. And so you're looking at the 165, and that's kind of where we are with the new idea that has been mentioned a boatload of times, to be honest. It has been something that has been mentioned by Arthur Blank, and it is not, it's not something where he was pressed on it. He wasn't pressed on the topic. And so it literally was one of those, he has volunteered it when he's just been asked to come on and have conversations. Arthur Blank has volunteered the idea that he wanted to have a women's professional soccer franchise here in town as far back as 2018, I want to say. 2018, 2019. It has been something that he has touched on for the longest time. At the time, we know if we do the right thing based on behavior for the right reasons to the people who are supporting us, we are going to get good success. August 30, 2018. And so that was as far back, and the question was asked, starting a women's team. This is 2018 now. Hasn't been any discussion. Like to think aspirationally that it might be something at the right time to consider. And once again, I think he says the women's national team has experienced great success, been great fun to watch. Six kids of my own, 3 of which are strong women. They'll have a vote in all of this. We'll see over time. Right now, we will focus on what we're focusing on. So that was him in 2018. That was Arthur Blank in 2018. In 2019, you're looking at, he had an interview during MLS Cup. If you remember the MLS Cup interview and the broadcast there. He brought it up then. Absolutely brought it up then. And he has brought it up to Mike and Jason. He brought it up to Major League Soccer on a national broadcast for MLS Cup. So it has been something that he has considered for quite some time. And so you are now looking at the future in women's soccer in the NWSL, where the Atlanta NWSL franchise is looking like it's going to be number 17. Doug Robertson using the words, could be introduced on Tuesday at a summit. And so you're thinking probably 27 or 28. Once again, you've got to think of infrastructure, where they're going to practice and where they're going to be housed and all of that. And the quote was there once again. The team could be headquartered alongside Atlanta United at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground. NWSL averaged attendance is 10,669 after last year. And so you're returning. The WPSL was the last time that you had professional soccer, women's professional soccer here in the Atlanta area with the Atlanta Beat version 2.0, the red and yellow version of the Beat. And so you now have that for the probability of NWSL 17 being Atlanta. I would imagine that they're going to play at Mercedes-Benz in the lower bowl configuration. I would also imagine that when the first match is going to be played, if Mercedes-Benz Stadium is in fact the venue, which I would anticipate that it would be when the club is announced, that you're going to have the entire bowl open. You're going to have the entire stadium open, and you're going to continue to set records in the NWSL. Guarantee it. And to play in a venue like Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the NWSL to take that next step in its growth, what you've seen in San Diego with the Wave, where they're stacking a lot of new attendance figures and a lot of broken records now attributed to San Diego with what they're doing with the Wave. When you have Boston come online and when you have Denver come online, obviously they're going to be in the big American football stadium. They're going to set those records then. When the Atlanta NWSL franchise, whatever year it is, 27, 28, what have you, whenever that franchise comes online, they will break those records. I will guarantee it. And so the CBS article, according to Abby, said that MBS is the venue. So there is that thought. And once again, there is a symposium tomorrow night where you will have Andre Dickens, you will have Arthur Blank discussing the successes of women in sport. And that is what it is kind of being. It is kind of indirectly being linked to. If you're putting 1 + 1 together, if the idea of NWSL Team 17 is going to be announced tomorrow, and there is an event tomorrow night, then logic would dictate 1 + 1 means it would happen at that particular event. Mayor Dickens will be there, and then Arthur Blank will be there. And so, like I said, 1 + 1 should equal 2, but we'll find out on Tuesday. Like I said, we don't know 27, 28, but once again, you've got to get the infrastructure in place. You've got to get everything laid out. And then, as Abby says, CBS is saying that it's going to be Mercedes-Benz. I don't know why you would want to, and this is something that I have seen on social media. I don't know why you would want to shortchange a franchise and their venue. I don't know why you would. You don't want to. With the growth of the sport, play in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, fill out Mercedes-Benz Stadium, make a point to the rest of the soccer world what the Southeast is accomplishing and what the fan base has accomplished so far with the 17s and Atlanta United. So, there's a certain bit of logic now that I talk it through. So the 17s will in turn be Team 17 in the NWSL. How's that for circle? How's that for a circle, huh? 17s get Team 17 in the NWSL. And so that's, it's going to be absolutely fun to piece all this stuff together. And we'll see what's going on there. And Wiley, you are correct about Kamal Miller. Looking in the Twitch pitch, Kamal had himself a day yesterday after the Pellegrino goal, and then there was a forearm shiver to Dreyer. Kamal has been known to kind of be very Nuhu-ish when it comes to his on-field behavior sometimes. So it has been an adventure with Kamal Miller, but San Diego makes it to round number 2, and we'll talk about it more next week because we're kind of in an international window here, but there is plenty to talk about as we go here in this week. To give you an idea, here's the rundown of what we got. Obviously, we'll catch up with our friend Jason Stevens because there is some news involving Atletico de Madrid and them receiving a new influx of capital. So there's that to talk about. We'll find out what else is on Jason Stevens' mind from London later this afternoon. That'll be at 10:30 tomorrow. We'll get Casey White's thoughts on what KCD has to think about the probability of NWSL Team 17 being for the 17s here in Atlanta. She'll bat lead off tomorrow. We'll fill the space with everything else that's been going on. And then the rest of the week, let's see. I'm trying to see what we've got. We got to catch up with some coaches, getting ready for the postseason. Later on in the week, we'll catch up with Keeler Hodges and find out everything in the USL Championship as they are down to their final groupings as well. Wednesday, once again, it's Tyler and Dylan batting leadoff. We're going to catch up with our friends at Corpus Christi FC on Wednesday at 10:30. Find out what it's like for them to come online under the USL umbrella. Thursday, I am debating because of the Tata Martino press conference that it will be an SDH PM because the Tata Martino presser is going to be at 10 o'clock and we're going to be gathering information. So probably an SDH PM on Thursday. A lot of it with Tata Martino sound and team sound and all of that. And so keep an eye on coverage on Thursday for everything going on with the Tata Martino presser. Keep you posted on all of that. But SDH PM probably Thursday with the Tata presser being in the morning on Thursday. And then Friday we'll catch up with our friends in hopefully with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring, get you ready for the weekend across the board. And once again, international window, we'll find out what's on everybody's mind. The first match for the U.S. is on Saturday, and we'll find out how things are going to be rolling and evolving there. We may try and roll over some guests from Thursday to Friday, find out what's on their mind there as their seasons continue. But that is the rundown for the week. Word from Atlanta United. 5 Atlanta United players are getting call-ups in this window. Almiron, DCQ, Ronald Hernandez, Alexei Miranchuk, and Bart Sleesh. Cooper Sanchez, we already know. It's in the press release from Atlanta United. We caught up with Cooper about 9:30 this morning. Miggy goes to Paraguay, facing the U.S. on the 15th, Mexico on the 18th. DCQ is on the U19s in Wales at Wrexham, participating in the youth tournament from November 10th through the 18th. U.S. plays Germany on the 12th, Wales on the 15th, Japan on the 18th. We'll see if we can catch up with DCQ. Ronald joins Venezuela for 2 friendlies, Australia on the 14th, Canada on the 18th. Alexei goes back to the Russian national team for friendlies against Peru on the 12th, Chile on the 15th. Bart Sleesh for a pair of 2026 FIFA qualifiers at home against the Netherlands on the 14th, Malta on the 17th. Poland sits in second place in Group G, 13.6 matches. Started at each of the 4 qualifiers, total 20 appearances and 1 goal with Poland since his debut back in 2021. Andres Perea, by the way, in one of the scarier moments from the weekend, and he has undergone successful surgery to repair a right lower leg fracture. The midfielder had surgery at Montefiore Einstein yesterday, beginning rehab immediately, and it was a nasty injury. He went up for a challenge. The leg buckled underneath him. And when you have players from the other team waving physios over and making sure that he got treatment, and if you looked at Perea, the look on his face, he was in shock when it happened. They had to immobilize him and take him off on a cart. But now he has had successful surgery to repair that lower leg fracture, and I think that is where we are with all the news of the morning. We hadn't even gotten into anything with England or anything like that with the Premier League. But once again, that is the show for today. You know what it's going to be looking like for the rest of the week. And we'll be right here with you. Thanks once again to everybody for hanging out with us. It looks like Atlanta NWSL Team 17 is going to be for the 17s. We might find that out tomorrow. We'll keep you posted on all of that. Tata Martino set to be reintroduced, looks like on Thursday morning. So it looks like SDH PM on Thursday, and we'll have all of the details there for you. Once again, tonight, keep an ear out, keep the bat signal out for Soccer Over There at 8 o'clock, and we'll break down everything that has happened, look at the international window coming up, and or maybe we just we're not going to, I don't think we're going to freeze or anything like that. But everybody, keep an eye on your plants, keep an eye on your pets specifically, keep an eye on your cars, make sure they're covered and that they're warm, because apparently it's a freeze warning tonight. And then, of course, everything heats back up to be in the 60s by the time we get to the midweek and later on in the week, just in time for high school playoffs. So for everybody here at SDH, that's a Reaction Monday. A lot to react to and a lot of cool stuff coming down the pike, probably. For everybody here at SDH, I'm just John Muchaplati. I'll play it safe. Since it's the end of the show, thanks to U.S. Soccer for bringing Cooper Sanchez in. Thanks to Gabe Schray. Thanks to Bart Keeler and his new car. Thanks to Abe Gordon, and thanks to all of you. Back at it again, less than 22. Since it's the end of the show, I'm actually going to play the right thing in sequence. Means I get to do this. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 9:05 Eastern.